Geek Out! Bleep blop bloop gamers. It's another installment of the Video Game Archives. I'm Sam.
I'm Zach.
This week we're going to be talking about Super Mario Bros. 2. At least the Super Mario Bros. 2 that we got in the United States, not the Lost Levels that we talked about last time. It was eventually re-released in Japan as Super Mario Bros. USA. We're talking about Super Mario Bros. 2. Certainly, the version, the Super Mario Bros. 2. I would argue this is going to sound like blasphemy in some circles. The score to this game, I think, stuck with me more than original Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it.
Yeah. This is, we all know we know, hopefully you guys do, but yeah, the story behind this, Nintendo of America found original Super Mario Bros. 2 from Japan too hard for us Americans, so they reskinned a Japanese game called Doki Doki Panic, and reskinned it with Mario characters, which is why none of the villains, show up from the original Super Mario Brothers, and it became Super Mario Brothers 2. Yay!
Hey. For better or worse.
This is a game that, to be fair, a lot of games on the Nintendo, a lot of sequels were different. For like Adventures of Link, completely different than the original Legend of Zelda. Donkey Kong Jr., different gameplay mechanic than Donkey Kong. You don't even control the same character. Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, quite different from it's a side-scroller, but it's a little more open world. Zach, what are some of your initial thoughts and memories when it comes to this version of Super Mario Bros. 2?
Yeah, it's really interesting when you put it in perspective compared to the other games that came out around this time and their sequel that just completely revamped the gameplay. Seeing this compared to those, it's like, maybe it's not that bad as it's made out to be. So even though it's just Doki Doki Panic was slapped on Mario characters, it's still a pretty solid game. However, gosh, I am so torn about this.
I will admit I would rather play original Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario Brothers 3 than Super Mario Brothers 2, but I would rather play Super Mario Brothers 2 than Super Mario Brothers The Lost Levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, the Lost Levels, that's just infuriating, and it's not fun to play. It just pisses you off, whether you do Mario Start or Luigi Start. This is just, you can kind of treat it as just a different NES game that came out around that time.
It certainly has some of my most formative memories of the NES. I think there's a couple legacy things that come with this game that, more so than Super Mario Brothers Lost Levels. The idea that Mario and Luigi are different heights. You've got the weird leg flutter that Luigi does. That was a Miyamoto. Miyamoto didn't direct the game; he produced it. But the leg flutter was his idea from Luigi. Princess Toadstool, because she's still Toadstool at this point. She's not Peach. She is. Her and Toad are, it's the first time they're playable characters. They get quite, you can technically beat the game as either one of them. There's Shy Guys are probably, outside of those two, are probably the biggest thing to come out of this game. That and Birdo. But yeah, it is kind of a weird, this is a different thing.
Exactly. You hardly have any of the assets from the original Super Mario Brothers. When you look back at retrospectives and stuff, this game is completely glossed over, with the exception of Shy Guy and Birdo. Also, with the main characters that you're able to choose from, Toadstool, Mario, Luigi, Toad. It wasn't until Super Mario 3D World that you could choose as those four characters again, and they have their abilities, which I find to be very fascinating that they went back to that.
Yeah, especially considering this game came out in '88 and Super Mario 3D World came out in 2014 or something.
Yeah,
It wasn't there. It wasn't a launch title, but it was because New Super Mario Brothers U was the big launch title for the Wii U, and that came a
right.
year or two later. Yeah, but and it was also I'm sure you have this version of the game. It was also the first Super Mario Advance is an enhanced remake of Super Mario Brothers 2. Like
Yeah.
because for some reason they skip one, they don't do three or the lost levels. They're just like here's Super Mario Brothers 2. Enjoy. Have you?
Which is really interesting.
Yeah. This was a game. Here's a confession time. Just like last week, I've never been able to beat lost levels. I've never been able to beat Super Mario. I've beaten 1 and I've beaten 3, but I've never been able to beat either version, either this or lost levels of Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah, this was a frustrating game for different reasons. One, because the mechanics were so different. For instance, I remember getting frustrated whenever there was the key chamber and you had to transport a key to a locked door, and then there was just faces on the wall that were
Phantos.
just
Yeah.
on your ass the whole time.
Yeah, that was probably the most stress-inducing aspect, certainly of this game, maybe of any of the NES Mario's. Was just because you knew, especially. I mean, I'm sure. I'm trying to remember the first time I did. I'm sure it was terrifying, like in the early '90s, trying to pick up the key. I'm sure. Now having done that, you know what's coming when you pick up that key because you see all the Phantos right there, and you're just like, oh shit, like you have to do this.
I mean, you could hype yourself up by showing how long you can survive in one controlled area, but then when you try to move across the level to reach a destination and have platforms, then you're a lot more limited when it comes to your dodging, in which case it's very stressful. And I remember using up all my lives and continues.
It's also like this is a game. We were going over the warps and stuff the last two installments. I don't know where all the secrets in Super Mario Brothers 2 are, which is probably a big reason why I've never beaten the game either.
I just remember the rocket because it was so out of place.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, I have no idea where any of the other secrets are located. Then again, I never really cared to look myself.
Yeah. Again, this was a game that. This is a game where consistently as a kid, I would get to world like 2-1, and I'd be like, okay, this is fine. Can we play Super Mario Brothers 3 now? Like, I would get to the, like, after I've taken out, like, the Birdo, I'm like, all right, this is cool. I don't want to do the flying carpet stuff anymore. Can we just put in a new game now?
Yeah, this is again, and I think it was just because this game is so different that it's really hard to come back to this unless if you put yourself in the mindset of maybe if I just start calling it Doki Doki Panic, I can just will myself to play this game. Because if someone goes, hey, you want to play Super Mario Bros. 2 USA? I go, can we just sweep that under the rug as well as the Japanese version, which is the sequel, except it's infuriating.
Okay, having said that, how many different formats do you own this version of Super Mario? Or how many different formats and enhanced remakes or whatever do you own Super Mario Brothers 2?
Goodness. I would probably say just the versions that are on Super Mario Brothers All Stars.
Well, isn't it on the NES Classic?
It is on the NES Classic, but again, just shows you how much I care for this game that I don't remember all the versions I have it on.
I'm sure you've got it on Virtual Console, and do you have Super Mario Advance?
Super Mario Advance, yeah, I skipped the handheld, so unfortunately I passed Super Mario Advance.
So you've got yeah.
When it was that point in my life, my parents said you could have one or the other when it came to devices, so I always went the console route.
Yeah. This is kind of a weird random story. I got my Game Boy Advance for free. I was I was walking home from school one day back in high school, and I found in a gutter, a fucking like gutter on the side of the road. Somebody had ditched.
Go on, take it.
Yeah. I probably either took some kid who left it and like went inside, though I don't know why he would leave it out, or two, leave it in a gutter. Some dude's like Game Boy, like purple Game Boy Advance, which I still have. So if I did take it, I have it. I grabbed, I saw this kind of ratty Game Boy Advance on the side of the road, picked it up, and the only game it had in it, because you can only have one game in it at a time, was the Lord of the Rings Return of the King tie-in game.
All the games.
Of all the games, that was the first. I guess I didn't pay money for it, but that was the first Game Boy Advance game I ever had. And that's the only reason I have a Game Boy Advance. Because I had the original Game Boy, and my mom was always like, well, you got the original Game Boy. Cool. It's like, and you've got a Nintendo 64 and a Super Nintendo. Enjoy. Every other console, be it handheld or a home console, I've had to buy with my own money. So that's how I wound up with a Game Boy Advance. I skipped
Wow.
I did end up getting a DS, and I did end up getting a 3DS. I never I feel bad because I have a 3DS, but I never play it because I just don't have the time. But yeah, that's how I wound up with a Game Boy Advance. I even having said this long tangent, I still didn't buy Super Mario Advance because I already had Super Mario Brothers 2, so I was good, or Super Mario All Stars more accurately. So I was fine.
Too funny. So going back to Super Mario Brothers 2 USA, can we just talk about how you cannot defeat an enemy by jumping on it?
Which threw me off so much as a kid because that's like Mario, right?
Yeah, it's a core mechanic, and
Yeah.
to go against that, it's just
Even even the 3D platformers have the jump on head mechanic. You can punch them, but you know what? There's something to be said about jumping on them at the same time. And yeah, so you have to, and then it's not only you have to throw them at something else, and if you just throw them at the ground, they just kind of reorient themselves and keep going. So you have to be around another vulture thing or the weird fork fairy things that are flying through the
I like
aerial levels.
I like throwing the snakes. Those were a lot of fun because
It's
they were
true.
tall, so you had a lot more surface area for chucking things at an enemy.
I like the bombs that you could randomly pull up from by the roots, like a bomb or a Goron flower or a bomb flower a la Ocarina of Time.
That is one of my favorite first bosses, though, the rat with the glasses that throws bombs because why not?
That's a very 80s late 80s early 90s kind of
Yeah,
villain.
right.
I
The
feel
animal that's too cool for school.
I feel like every cartoon had a villain that was like a version of that. The Ninja Turtles, I'm sure, had multiple
Yeah,
versions
right.
of that. Street Sharks, all of those guys had the fucking anthropomorphic mouse rat thing with sunglasses and a jacket. What do you think of the big bad who, apparently neither of us have ever beat Wart?
Yeah, Wart. Okay.
Just
I mean, I think it would have been cool if Nintendo brought him back as maybe a subtle nod or just a boss in its own spin-off game years down the road.
yeah, give
I
him
think there
yeah.
could have been some potential there,
They kind of
but
they brush a lot of this game under the carpet.
exactly.
Uh,
But I mean,
yeah.
it was nice. I mean, as far as again experimental sequels that completely changed the formula, I think it was a nice welcome change. Now, as far as having Ward as a staple, I mean, I'm very attached to Bowser at this point, so
Oh,
I don't know.
he is the definitive Mario villain. I mean, even the other, down the line we've got Super Mario Land where you fight aliens. And then of course Super Mario Land 2, it's not Bowser, it's Wario.
Yeah, I think it would have been nice to see Wart as an RPG boss down the road.
Yeah, yeah. Come on, Paper. When's the last? We probably aren't going to really go into Paper Mario, so I guess this is. I mean, it's Super Mario Brothers 2. Of course, we can tangent a bit more. When is There hasn't been a Paper Mario game since what? Super Paper Mario on the Wii.
Paper Mario Color Splash for the Wii U.
Ah, right. And then there was Sticker Star too. Now that I think about it.
Well, there was also a crossover with the Mario and Luigi series called Mario and Luigi Paper Jam, and the concept is amazing. However, the game itself is just it's a chore.
That's a shame. Because actually, I remember the first time I saw Paper Mario games, I was like, "Oh, this is just a gimmick." And then I actually played it, and I was like, "Oh, this is actually quite good." But yeah, I mean, in terms of, Super Mario Brothers 2, it's interesting because I feel like Wart showed up. He wasn't a big bad in like the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, but I feel like Wart at some point did show up on that cartoon.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen him animated at some point.
Yeah. He's just a weird giant frog king. You know, like I don't know.
Fairy tale.
Yeah. And what do you think of the entire premise of this game maybe being a dream?
It's a cop out, but it's definitely one of those cliched storylines that you can always go back to, especially for something that's family oriented. So it makes no difference to me.
Yeah, I know Zelda did something similar with Link's Awakening on the
Right.
Game Boy. Yeah. So at the same time, I never beat the game, so I never got that far, as I knew. Also, this is the game that introduces the kind of like play mechanic where you've got the curtains at the beginning of the game, which continues on into Super Mario Brothers 3 and into Mario Party 2 has the it's all just a show kind of motif.
Yeah, it's a nice element. That didn't have to be put in there. It could have easily just been a solid background and be done with it.
Yeah. Man.
So, um, going back to playing the game, who is your go-to character to choose from?
Most of the time, I'm just using Mario. When I have to do one of the levels that's got like flying carpets, where you have to be on flying carpets and that sort of thing, I do Peach for the lift. And if I do like an icy level, which come out much later in the game, Luigi already has problems with traction, but he also moves a bit faster, and that little float gives him a bit of an edge. So on the icy levels, I'll pick Luigi. I never pick Toad for whatever reason.
Yeah, I never picked Toad either.
Is he just fast?
I think just fast.
Fair
so
enough.
Probably useful for when you're transporting the keys, but otherwise it's just you're asking for a harder version.
How about you?
So for me, I wasn't too precise with my jumping yet, so I always went with Peach Toadstool as a safety net.
Yeah, makes sense. Have you ever played the original Doki Doki Panic?
No, I've seen footage of it, and it blew my mind at first because I was just wondering to myself, who are these people? This isn't Mario. What's going on here? What is the meaning of this?
Yeah, is this like a cheap like Hong Kong knockoff? And it's like, no, this is the original version of the game.
Exactly.
And apparently it was based off like a cartoon, a Japanese cartoon. They wanted to port it over to the United States anyway, but they, obviously didn't have the name brand recognition. It did in Japan, and they weren't going to do Super Mario Brothers 2 as it currently stood, so it just it was apparently a minimal amount of work, because the soundtrack, already composed by Koji Kondo, the Starman and the coin sound effects and the mushrooms, those were apparently already there. There was just slight tweaks here and there. Apparently Doki Doki Panic doesn't have the run option, but to make the game easier and to keep it consistent with the original Super Mario Brothers, they added the run feature. So I can only imagine what it'd be like to play through Doki Doki Panic or Super Mario Brothers 2 without that. Just how much harder that would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, regarding the music, when you were mentioning the composer, that explains why I like this so much. Okay, because I'm always whistling the main theme for this game.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere I go. It's just catchy as hell. It's also definitely one of the easier ones that not everyone points out immediately. I remember there was a video I saw on YouTube where a guy from Panic at the Disco was just like doing improv strumming and going ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
I could see Brendan Urie doing that. I could totally see him. I've seen that man in concert. I can totally see him just going to town on the Super Mario Brothers 2 theme. But yeah, I would take that. I like the Super Mario Brothers 3 soundtrack just fine. I like the original Super Mario Brothers soundtrack just fine. But for me, there's something effervescent and happy about that opening theme to Super Mario Brothers 2, where I'm just like, this is happy as hell. I love this. Again, after that first level, I'm basically good. I'm just like, all right, well, now I just never have to play this for like another 3 months.
Okay, so another thing I want to get into, what did you think of the recurring Birdo battles?
You know, they as a kid, I think I was a little more frustrated to get the timing right when it came to jumping on those eggs and throwing them back. But as I've gotten older, they're just like, oh, it's another Birdo fight. It's like some of the easiest stuff in the game. But yeah, as a kid, I remember them being frustrating. Also, I remember kind of being weirded out by the fact that you're going to different worlds by walking through a bird mouth.
Yeah, right.
Like, what the hell's going on here?
And the sound it makes too.
Why doesn't it have
You
pupils? Why does it look like a demon bird?
and
But yeah,
then you play the slots.
yeah. And I would never win the slot machine in between levels in Super Mario Brothers 2. But yeah, what did you think of Birdo, Yoshi's perennial tennis and double dash partner?
um, yeah, I think similar to you. When I was a kid, it was just annoying and trying to land the jumps on the egg that never seems to fall with gravity. But not to mention the eggs are freaking huge.
Yeah, it's like the size of her belly.
I'm sure there's also an egg on your face joke I can make out of this, but
Sure.
oh well. Anyways, so getting the timing, it was very tricky, but playing it now, it is a very satisfying fight, even though it can be pretty tedious, especially in the later levels where you don't have much wiggle room as far as landing on the egg, picking up the egg, throwing the egg. So you're using what else is in the area, in which case it could be the blocks that uses stepping stones and you're able to throw those. But, Birdo could be at the top of the screen and the blocks could be at the bottom of the screen. So you got to pick up the block, jump platform to platform, climb your way up, and then you reach Birdo. Then you can throw it at Birdo and then rinse, lather, repeat. That, I think, can be a bit of a slog.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think that kind of speaks to a lot. Again, a lot of this game is kind of tedious. The platforming doesn't have the same sense of accomplishment or joy that the first Mario Brothers or certainly Super Mario Brothers 3 does. Like, I remember getting to, like, again, I'm always citing the flying carpet. I hated that fucking flying carpet section. Just like I always hated, the thing that is more frustrating for me than, like, enjoying is, like, bombing through the destructible walls. Like, where you have to time the bomb just right to blow apart those bricks. For me, the most fun platforming part is probably the waterfall. That's the closest it gets to, like,
Interesting.
classic Mario.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't crazy about the waterfalls just because of the timing of when the logs appear and whatnot. What I've found to be a good mix of tough but fair is probably when you're digging through the sand.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was a really interesting concept, and through trial and error, especially when you have enemies that are on your ass, that you could be penalized. It could be counted against you if you're just digging down in one straight direction.
Yeah. But at the same time, if I wanted to play Dig Dug, I'd play Dig Dug.
Fair enough.
But no, that was a fun. I mean, that mechanic didn't take me out of the game. Again, it was more so just some of the more tedious things. Again, like you were saying, like working your way to bosses or blowing up walls or being forced to fly. Because for me, like, Mario and his compatriots are best feet on the ground, moving, left to right, jumping, and all that good shit. But yeah,
it's this is definitely a much slower pace. Tackling enemies is just very clunky. And yeah, it's just a very slow experience.
Yeah, apparently, in terms of tackling enemies, originally the original idea behind Doki Doki Panic or what became Super Mario Brothers 2 is the original gameplay mechanic is players would be able to jump on each other's heads a la Ice Climbers and kind of work their way up. It was supposed to be a two-player simultaneous game, but they just couldn't get that mechanic to work. So but they kept the mechanic of jumping on people to pick them up and throw them at other people.
Is this the second time we've talked about Ice Climbers?
I hope so. Let's make it an Ice Climbers podcast. It'll be one episode long.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then the rest of the episodes will just be like, when will this happen? Yeah. Here's a nod to Ice Climbers.
Yeah. Bring Ice Climbers back into Smash Brothers, guys. Please. No, I'd wish, God. But I need that's a game I don't own on the virtual console that for some reason I need to rectify that.
Yeah, I mean, the jumping controls are terrible. It's not worth it.
It's still better than Clue Clue Land.
I like Clue Clue Land.
You like Clue Clue? Would you rather have Clue Clue Land or Ice Climbers?
Clue Clue Land you can actually play and advance with the levels.
Yeah, true.
The controls are weird, but you can actually get used to them over time. Ice Climbers, you're just frustrated because you can't jump to the left or jump to the right.
That's fair. Yeah, it's kind of like ghouls and goblins level jumping where you can't compensate while you're in midair.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, Super Mario Brothers 2. I'm trying to think how many times Super Mario Brothers All Stars, Wii Virtual Console, and Wii U Virtual Console. So I own this game 3 times. I don't have an NES Classic. I never owned it on the NES, and I don't have Super Mario Advance. So yeah, I have 3 different versions of this game that I am middling on because, of course, I own movies that I have no intention to ever watch again. Just like I have Super Mario Brothers 2 3 times, and I've never beaten the game once.
Yeah, this is I don't hate it as much as I do the Japanese Super Mario Brothers 2, but even then, that's not saying much. I think this is one of those entries in its history where it's more of an icebreaker to people who aren't too familiar with, all the previous Mario games from the last 30 years.
What would you say are okay? We've talked about best and worst. Do you have any kind of like closing thoughts on Super, like either memories or just the legacy of Super Mario Brothers 2? For me,
yeah,
it's
as far as the legacy goes, love the Shy Guys. I'm glad they stuck around.
They are the most iconic bad guy from this game. Absolutely. All due respect to Birdo and Wart. Yeah.
Nothing against them, but they're not Shy Guys.
They are not Shy Guys. The next time we see Shy Guys, we don't see them again until like Super Mario World 2.
Yeah, because that's when they start to become more on the Yoshi side.
Yeah. They are kind of the definitive. I'm trying to think another Mario game that has Shy Guys. I don't think they show up in.
Yeah, just the RPGs. That's what I can think about.
Yeah, definitely not Super Mario 64. I remember they show up in the Mario parties. But and Shy Guy was originally supposed to be one of the playable characters in Mario Kart 64.
That's right.
Yeah, in the working model, which is kind of weird to me. I'm trying to remember who he replaced. I think he was there instead of Donkey Kong or something like that. But yeah, it's kind of for me the apart from playing this game every now and again. When I was kind of just looking to break the monotony between Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers 3 or Contra or whatever, I would say that if you've never seen the Japanese commercial for Super Mario Brothers USA, it's both delightful and horrifying. So maybe check that out. I can't think of a more glowing recommendation. But yeah.
Sorry, real quick. One mechanic that I actually wouldn't mind seeing return is the charge jump.
Oh, yeah.
Duck, blink, and then you're able to jump a lot higher.
Yeah, the release further up like a rocket ship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Now I'm done with this game.
Yeah. But, we'll be back next week with the grandmother of all NES Mario games, the Mario game against which all NES Mario games will be judged. I mean, we're going in order.
Jury and execution.
Yes. The basis for the movie The Wizard, starring Fred Savage and Beau Bridges. But we'll get into that. For now, this has been another installment of the Video Game Archives. I'm Sam.
I'm Zach.
Catch you next time. This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual catching up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.